Am Freitag, den 21. Januar 2011, trafen sich im Parlamentsgebäude in Den Haag die Vorsitzenden der Partei Die Vrijheid, René Stadkiewicz und Mark Doll, mit Geert Wilders, Chef der niederländischen PVV. Am Rande der dreistündigen Gespräche gab Geert Wilders PI ein exklusives Interview.
Geert Wilders, you are now with your political party PVV, the third strongest party in the Netherlands, and you are indirectly involved in the government. Do you think your Islam critic positions are now gaining ground as well as on the government side and in the population?
Well, yes, indeed, we are the third biggest party today. In the polls, we are even the second party now. We only grew in popularity since the last elections. And that is because our program, the program of the government, and as you know, the government can only exist with our help. There are very tough measures to beat the immigration, to beat the asylum influx in the Netherlands. And even though the word Islam is not mentioned, everybody knows that it's because we want to fight against the growing Islamization of our society. So a lot of people really appreciate the fact that now, for the first time since centuries, there is a government with the support of the My Freedom Party that really wants to beat the immigration, will be tougher on integration, and at the end of the day will stop the enormous influx of Islam in the Netherlands.
Is it a tough fight for you to influence the established parties in the Netherlands in your direction?
Well, it's always a tough fight, but hey, we are here to fight. We don't fight for ourselves, we fight for a very good cause. And that is to preserve the freedom of our people, the freedom of everybody living in the Netherlands, their children. We believe that the more Islam there would be in our societies, the less freedom it would get. If we would get more Sharia-like measurements in any country in the free Western world, it will cost us our freedom. So people believe that. People see it surrounding them in their neighborhoods, at their schools, in the public transport. And they want a change. And of course, this is not a popular message by the ruling elite, because they fooled us and the society in the last decades that the multicultural society is the best thing that could happen. And people see now that it's not. It is not only very costly. In the Netherlands, it costs more than 7 billion euros a year to the taxpayer. But it also is against our culture, against a free society. There is more crime. There is a lot of dependency on social benefits. So people in the Netherlands are not intolerant. They don't dislike people. They don't dislike Muslims. But they see that the influx of Islam is not only costly, but also, against everything that they fought for and their parents fought for. And they want to change. They want the Netherlands back, not in the old days, but back as a country that is proud of its identity and its culture, and that the Islamization should be stopped.
Statistics say that from the year 2050 we could have Muslim majorities. And what would be the dangers that you see on that majorities, and what could we do against this Islamization?
Well, indeed, the demographics is a problem. I read some years ago already a book from a friend of mine from Canada, Mark Stein. And he also wrote about the fact that Europe will lose itself only because of the demographics. Not only that the indigenous people have fewer children than the non-indigenous people, but also because of the immigration. And what would be the fear? Once again, I don't think that Muslims are bad people. The contrary, the majority of the Muslims in our free societies are law-abiding people. But they bring along a culture, an identity, that is based on a totalitarian ideology called Islam. And the difference, between Islam and other religions, Islam is, I believe, not a religion but more an ideology, is that there is no room for anything else but Islam, and that cannot and will never change. So when it comes to the role of Christians or non-believers or apostates, of homosexuals, or everybody that doesn't agree with what is written in the Quran, they will get into a lot of trouble. So if we want to prevail, let the freedom prevail in our societies, we should not fight the people, but we should fight the ideology, and therefore we should stop the mass immigration coming from those kind of countries to the West. If we don't, at the end of the day, we will lose our free democratic society. There will be totalitarianism in Europe, and this is something that we should not want more. We should fight against it in a democratic way.
Many politicians hope that there will be a moderate Euro-Islam. Do you think this could happen, a moderate Euro-Islam?
No, I don't believe in a moderate Islam or in a European Islam. There is only one Islam, and that is a totalitarian Islam. And an Islam is something that we would not want to have more in our societies. Islam, once again, I believe it's not another religion on the tree of religions. It cannot be compared with Christianity or with Buddhism or any other real religion. Islam wants to dominate every part of society. It wants to dominate one's life from birth until death. And there is no room for anything else. And everybody, it already states the same in the Quran itself. If you don't believe in only one aspect of their holy book, the Quran, you are seen as an apostate. You are seen as a non-believer with a very harsh penalty. So I don't believe ever it will be possible to have a moderate Islam. But I do believe that people can change. So I do believe that Muslims can be or become moderate if they adhere to our values, to our freedom, to our rule of law, to our constitutions. They can change. But in order to achieve that, we should not have more influx of people from Islamic countries where we have not yet fixed the problem with many Muslims that are present in our free Western societies today. So no, I don't believe in a moderate Islam. I believe in moderate people, and in order to get more moderate Muslims in our society, we should stop the influx of more people from Islamic country than today.
More and more people in Europe identify Islam as a danger. Why do you think the established parties are have so many difficulties to make a right policy now?
Well, you know, the multicultural society in most European countries was a few decades ago invented by the liberals and by the leftish politicians. They fooled everybody that every religion and every culture was equal. So at the end of the day, we lost our sense of identity. I believe there is a kind of identity crisis in Europe today. People don't know who they are anymore. They don't know what their values are from. And if you don't know who you are, it's very difficult to see who you are not and what you don't want. But people feel that something is wrong. And luckily, in the last few years, you see not only in the Netherlands, but in many European countries, that people don't believe anymore in the lies and the tricks from the political elite from the past, that every culture is equal. They see the differences for the worst. They see what the multicultural society brought us, not only in a cultural sense, but also when you look at the financial cost of it. So it's difficult to fight it, but you see a growing amount of people saying, hey, we are fooled. Everything was put under the carpet. We were not allowed to talk about it. If you said something in any country about Islam or about the multicultural society, you were labeled as either a xenophobe or a racist or a crazy guy or a crazy party. And now, fortunately, in many countries, people stand up and people say, hey, I'm not being fooled. I'm not a racist. I'm not a xenophobe. But I want less Islam. I want more freedom. I don't want more totalitarianism in my own country. And those people, luckily now in many countries, find a political home. They find parties and politicians standing up saying that they are not xenophobes, but that they really want to fight for their freedom, and that they can explain to the public that they are not crazy, but that they are very right, preserving their freedom and their own cultural identity.
What's about the freedom of speech in Europe? You are on trial because you were talking about Islam very frankly. Elisabeth Sabadic-Wolf is in Austria on trial, and there's a new European law about free speech, about religions. Do you think there's growing movement to reduce the freedom of speech in that direction?
Yes, unfortunately, this is very true. And one of the very wrong things is, for instance, the United Nations, and certainly the General Assembly of the United Nations, where the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Conference, makes a lot of mess with resolutions that go directly against anybody criticizing Islam. And unfortunately, you see that not only on the European level, but also on many national levels, that countries subscribe to that the old multiculturalists try, now they cannot silence the people by voting, that they try to silence the people by laws and by courts. And instead of having an open and transparent political discussions, either in society, in newspapers, on television, or in parliaments, you see now that people, whether they are politicians like myself, or journalists, or activists, or people who are really very brave to speak out against the Islamization, that they are now, well, being taken to court, and that countries are enacting to certain laws that are exactly against the freedom of speech. And I always say, well, if you would have criticized, either it's myself or anybody else, Christianity, all those things would not have happened. But because we criticize an ideology that is unfortunately very powerful in the international arena, you see now that governments give in, either for economical reasons, for multicultural reasons, for any reasons they find possible. But at the end of the day, it will not work. I see it as one of the last resorts of many governments to silence the public and the politicians and the journalists and the intellectuals, but they will not achieve it. It will fail at the end of the day.
In Germany, we have a new party now. It's called Die Freiheit. René Stadtkewitz left his former party, CDU. Do you see some parallels? You left your party, VVD, 6 years ago, made the new party. And do you think they have chances to get success in Germany?
Well, I certainly hope so. He certainly deserves it. I believe René Stadtkewitz is a real political hero, not only in Germany, but also in the rest of Europe. We need politicians like René Stadtkewitz in any country in Europe to stand up in a decent way, but in a strong way. René Stadtkewitz, as I know him, he is like myself, if I may add. He's not a crazy guy. He's not a xenophobe or racist, but he stands up for the things he believes in. He stands up to fight for the German people in a very strong way. His party is not for no reason called the Freedom Party, and he wants Germany to stay a free country, and he is also being very critical, as I understand it, of the multicultural society. And I hope very much, and if I can help in any possible way, I of course will do that, that in Germany now today, politicians like René Stadtkewitz will be successful. Of course, first later this year in the elections in Berlin, which is very important. It's the capital of your country, but I hope so, and I'm very confident he also has a very good chance later in the national elections to be an alternative for the existing parties that did not do their job, ignored the problems of the people, said that Islam is just one of the guys. Well, here's Mr. Stadtkewitz standing up and saying, this is all not true. I am a politician who really speaks out for the public and wants to defend the freedom of the German people. So I'm confident, and I met him several times, that he will be very successful in the elections.
In October, you've been in Berlin and you hold a speech there. What do you think about that meeting? Could it be a starting point for the Islam critical movement in Germany?
Well, my role is only a very modest one. I was invited by René and I was very proud to be there. But René will be the starting point for the change in Germany. That's what I hope. We saw how popular the book of Mr. Sarrazin in Germany was. You saw that a lot of people woke up when they read that book, and you saw that many people are eager for a change. And not only by reading a book, but I believe those people who were very sympathetic to what Mr. Sarrazin wrote also want a political change. Not only read a book, but also want a political change. And I think that if Mr. Stadtkewitz, René, would be successful in Berlin and in Germany, and I hope and I'm confident that he will, that not I as a Dutch friend, but that he could change a lot of things. And once again, I hope that in many places in Europe, in the past we saw that only ultra-right parties, like in France, the party from now Mrs. Le Pen, or In the United Kingdom, the British National Party, very wrong, ultra-right, sometimes even fascist parties stood up. And there was not really an alternative for the old elite or those kind of parties. And now you see, whether it's Mr. Stadkiewicz in Germany, or my party in Holland, or the People's Party in Denmark, that normal, intelligent politicians stand up and make a change. And I always say it's not 1 minute over 12 yet, but it's 5 minutes to 12. We don't have so much time left. And this is the time for people to stand up and for other people to vote for those kind of parties. And I'm sure that it will bring a change.
You said it's 5 minutes to 12. We have in more and more cities in Europe quarters where the police does not want to go in. We have Sharia law in some quarters. What do you think should be done there with those people who don't want to live in a democratic state, who want to live in a Sharia state?
Well, for me it's very easy. I can give a very short answer. Those people should leave our countries immediately. And if it's not voluntarily, we should make them leave. If people want to implement Sharia, it's the exact opposite as democracy. So you cannot make people leave because they want something, but if they act on it, and it's fortunately still, today still, in many countries, it's forbidden to act according to Sharia. If you want to really act like Sharia, then you commit a crime. In most of the countries it's the case, even though many countries and laws accept it in some way, whether it's Sharia mortgages or halal food or whatever. So I believe that if people, as in many cities in Europe indeed, have their own neighborhoods, commit crimes against the law, against the society, that we should be not tolerant anymore. We have been tolerant for too long in our free Western societies. We should start becoming intolerant to the people who are intolerant to us. So if you commit a crime, whether it's based on Sharia or not, you should be sent packing as soon as possible. And even now in Holland, as you said, we are now part of a, not part of the government, but supporting the government. And we are making laws now that if people commit a crime, if it's not for the first and for the second time, that we will start procedures that you can lose your Dutch nationality and be sent away from the country that you have a double nationality from. And those kind of steps are an important signal to show to all those people who want to implement Sharia that we will not accept it, that we will fight back, and that there is no place in Holland or Germany or France or any other country for anything that has to do with the implementation of Sharia.
Once you said the Quran should be banned, how can you justify that?
Yeah, well, I'm not it's not my normal thing for me to ask for a banning of the book, of any book. I'm for a free society, but the Quran is something different, and you have to see it in the Dutch context. I don't know how it's in Germany, but in the Netherlands we have banned and outlawed Mein Kampf. So when that happened a few decades ago, you did not hear the left. You did not hear the left shouting that what a shame, Mein Kampf should not be banned. Everybody who is criticizing me now for saying that was silent when a few decades ago the Dutch highest court, the Supreme Court, outlawed Mein Kampf. I believe that if you look at the content of the Quran, the book commits crimes several times on almost every page. And I believe in freedom of speech. I believe even that a kind of First Amendment like we know they have in the United States should be implemented. But even in the United States, where you have a First Amendment and an almost maximum freedom of speech, incitement to violence is still punishable by law. And the Quran is full of incitement of violence. And this is something that I believe there is no place for in the Netherlands, but of course it's also a signal. I know that I will not get a majority in my parliament for outlawing the Quran, but I also wanted to show that the double standard of the left, when they, in Holland, Mein Kampf was outlawed, everybody thought it was okay, and now we have another book that is even worse than Mein Kampf, or at least is comparable when it comes to hate, not only to Jews. For instance, the Quran is, you find more anti-Jewish passages in the Quran than in Mein Kampf. A lot of people don't know that. So to show the world, at least to show the Netherlands people, the double standard of the leftist politicians and the fact that the book is full of incitement of violence, made me propose it a few years ago in the Dutch parliament. But I know it will not soon get a majority.
Well, the problem is this book is on the masquerade of a religion. It would be important to point out it's a political ideology, not only a religion.
Of course. This is why at least my party makes a difference between, for instance, Islamic schools and Christian or Jewish schools. We are not against Christian or Jewish schools, but we are against, we want to close down all the Islamic schools in the Netherlands, because we believe that young children that are educated, that we want them to integrate in the Dutch society, to find a job, to have Dutch friends. If they are already raised in a school with a book full of hate and of a totalitarian ideology, where everybody who is kuffar, who is not acting like a Muslim, is an outcast. This is not how we should treat the freedom of religion. I believe Islam is more an ideology than a religion. Of course, it has religious symbols, like a mosque and an imam and a holy book, but in reality, it's more, far more. It's like a Belgian professor, Urban van Meulen, he's a well-known Islam professor, always says, Islam is 95% an ideology and maybe 5% a religion. And I believe to beat Islam, we should treat it like that. We should treat it like an ideology and not as a religion.
René Stadkiewicz visited with other parties Israel in December, and he said Israel is on the front line of international jihad. What do you think about this position?
Well, I fully agree with René Stadkiewicz that this is exactly the case. Israel is a beacon of light in a totalitarian area of darkness. Whether it's Jordan, Iran, Syria, or Egypt, they are all corrupt non-democracies. And I believe that the problem, for instance, between the Israelis and the Palestinians, or the Israelis and the Arab world, is not a territorial problem. It's a problem between ideologies. It's a problem between enlightenment and darkness, between freedom and tyranny. And Israel is indeed that beacon of light. If Israel falls, then we will all, at the end of the day, fall. Israel is defending our values, is defending who we are. And if we accept Israel at the end of the day to pay a high price for the Islamic Intifada, we will all pay the price. It's more or less a canary in the coal mine. So we should support Israel. Of course, we can be critical about the policy of Israel, but we should support Israel, I believe, in any possible way. We are all Israel. And I always say that the reason that Dutch or German parents can sleep at night is because Israeli parents lay awake at night because their children are in the army fighting or defending their country against the Islamic Jihad, and their fight is our fight. So at the end of the day, we are all Israel.
In Tunisia, there's an actual crisis now, and a religious leader, Mr. Ghanouchi, wants to go back to Tunisia. Do you think it could be a parallel to Iran, where Khomeini went back, and then we have another Islamic radical state?
Well, of course, this is the danger. If you look at this, what's happening in Tunisia, first, you can only be positive in a way that a corrupt leader has been sent away. So the first reaction should, of course, be that we all hope that the Tunisian people get a democratic society back in return. But of course the danger is that they get something else in return, that they get the radicals taking over. And that is something that is indeed a very big danger, what is happening. Look at other countries, look at Egypt, or unfortunately, there are many countries in the Middle East where the chances would be that if the terrible dictators that are ruling their countries now would fly away, that they would get something worse in return. So it's very difficult to see what is happening. I'm very happy for the Tunisian people that their leader is gone, but I'm very fearful what we will get in return, and it could be worse. I hope it will be better.
You founded the International Freedom Alliance. How is the development in that alliance, and how important is it to get a good support from the USA?
Well, the USA is very important, as Europe is very important. But there are many areas in the world, whether it's Kashmir and India, or Nigeria, or Australia, any country that is on the border of the jihad, where they face problems, that there will be an organization that at least is trying to help. That is looking at the grassroots level in every country and supporting them with the message for freedom. And that message is unfortunately a message also very critical about this totalitarian ideology called Islam. So we are working towards the establishment of this organization. I think we are now at the end of the preparation. And then I hope that with websites, with a lot of visits to many countries, to visiting friends and supporting grassroots organizations, because at the end of the day, politicians in every country, like René Stadkowitz in Germany, like myself in Holland, politicians have to do the job. But in order to get politicians elected, you have to get the awareness lifted in many countries what the real identity of Islam is, what the threat of Islam is. And often, by the way, they already know that. So if we, with this international organization, can support any grassroots organization, and from that maybe political parties can emerge, what once again they have to do themselves by visiting, supporting in any possible way, speaking about this problem and telling them that they are not alone, and also giving a signal to the Arab world that there is an organization and there are politicians that are fighting back, that are saying enough is enough. If we would achieve only part of that, I would be very proud.
Last question, and that's not about Islam, about the European Union. What do you think about the future of this European Union? Could it stay as it is, or should it go back to an alliance of national states with their own currencies and their own freedom?
Well, I'm not very positive, and my party is neither, about Europe. We believe that the Europe, how it started in 1957, was more or less the Europe that we like. It's a Europe that is more involved in economical cooperation than a big political bureaucratic body. I believe there is not so much support for the political arm of the European Union in many European member states. So Europe should work together economically, maybe even monetarily, if it's still possible with all the problems from Ireland to Portugal. But this is what Europe should do. Europe should not interfere politically. You see nowadays that most laws in the member states are coming from Brussels and Strasbourg and not from the capitals. And there is very little support for that. So I'm for a stronger nation state, for less integration of Europe. I believe not any member state, not any state should join the European Union. Europe is big enough. Countries like Bulgaria and Romania should even leave Europe. Turkey should never. One of my slogans in Holland was Turkey in, the Netherlands out. That would be the best thing to do. Well, and economically it's also a very difficult situation. We so far were against, even though we support the government, we voted against the financial support to countries like Greece and Portugal, because it's ridiculous. We face a lot of problems in Holland. We have to fight the deficit in the Netherlands with 80 billion cuts, and not only on the public expenditure, but also on the normal people. They have to pay a price, and at the same time, we do the most crazy things. The government wants to spend €500 million to go to fight in Afghanistan. We support with a lot of millions of euros countries like Greece, who messed up, who fooled the rest of Europe. So I think that at the end of the day, European countries should support themselves, and we should firstly look after our own. And if it will lead to a crisis of the Europe at the end of the day, I don't know, but it could very easily happen.
Geert Wilders, thank you very much for this interview and a lot of success for the future.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.